All right, we are live. Hi everyone, I am really excited to host Javier Glatt, co-founder and CEO of CadMakers. Uh, Javier did his bachelor's of arts at University of British Columbia. Then he did graduate diploma in business administration at Simon Fraser University and MBA in the same university. So I have been following Javier's work through Key Feature Friday, and it's amazing. I'm a big fan of those, and I really look forward every Friday. Like, what's the next thing you are gonna showcase? So, I'm really excited for this interview, and thanks a lot, Javier, for your.
My pleasure. Yeah. Oh, we lost you. I think we lost. Yeah. Oh, he's back. We're back.
Yeah,
It's okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, great. Well, listen, so great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I've watched some of your previous episodes, and you're doing an awesome job bringing in some great speakers. So I have big shoes to fill here. So I'll do my best to try to fit in with the previous speakers.
Yeah. So, one thing which I found really interesting is your background from arts, MBA to construction. Like, can you share us like your journey, like after you graduated, what were the things and what was the trigger point that you wanted to start your own company and do in especially in construction?
Thanks. Yeah, I was a bit of a late bloomer. I was a student athlete in university, so I was mostly focused on sports, and I didn't do as good on the educational side as I probably should have. So I took the path of least, path of hardest resistance is the path I took. But yeah, I got in. I was a professional football player for a number of years, and then after that, I grew up and realized I got to get a real job someday. I can stop wearing tights on the weekend and running into my friends and getting headaches constantly. I said, okay, I'm going to grow up and get a real job. And so I went back to school and did an MBA and learned a lot. Not to say that that's for everyone, but for me, I needed to learn some stuff. And during that process, I interned for a little while at a real estate development company. So I started learning about construction. And then I met my co-founder, who's a really smart engineer, had worked as a mechanical engineer, kind of came up through early days, kind of Gary Technologies, Gary Partners. So he was kind of one of the few people. It's kind of a small first few kind of computational designers. A lot of the people you would talk with would trace their roots to those days, kind of mid 2000s at Gary Partners and Morphosis and a few other architectural firms that were kind of leading the pack with all things computational design and automation for CAD and BIM and what we know today. So yeah, so for me, I learned a lot about the problem. I spent a year kind of working basically for free, just going to site trailers, going to projects, learning from smart people. And this was about 2011, 2012 range. And it was, it was just kind of like technology was just barely starting to make its way into the AEC world. Still, everything was very paper based, and we relied heavily on the knowledge of the superintendents or the people who have built stuff before to be able to kind of discuss, to like know what to do. So the digital knowledge or digital kind of like repository of how to do things was pretty light. And yeah, so I mean, I just learned that a lot of stuff, as materials, as stuff's showing up on site, things don't work, are not constructible, not buildable, and it takes really smart people to solve problems, and eventually things get built. But I learned that there's got to be a better way. So, if you could build things first digitally and then build it live physically after, it seemed to make a lot of sense. And so yeah, so I kind of spent some time on the finance, project management, learning the problem side of things. And then when we started the company, myself and my co-founder Nick, We just started with that. It's like, what was the problem? Coordination was the first problem. Building these large scale projects is very difficult from a coordination perspective. The designs are getting more complicated with different types of, systems that need to be integrated from, environmental perspective, from a material selection perspective, prefabrication, the mixture of prefabrication and on-site construction causes a lot of problems, right? So you have some stuff that's prefab and some stuff that's built on site, and those things have a tougher time to be able to be coordinated. So we started like that. That's how I got into it, and then it's been very much like learning on the job. We started the company in 2014, and for many many years, I went to any company, any meeting that was with regard in our company, I was there for years. So I got to see everything, and we've scaled past that now. But yeah, I just learned a lot from smart people and was able to shadow people, and we've always taken an approach with technology of like starting from the problem, working backwards, and figure out what people need, and then building that.
I see. And like when you started, like for me, like construction industry and architecture engineer in general is a complex field. So in your early days of your company, like you if you had like any expectations or deadline that in 6 months we got to build this prototype and test it out in the market, like what were some assumptions you made which were like overestimated or like didn't
Mm.
work out as per your timeline?
Well, lots of things didn't work out as we as we planned. The first major thing is, when we first started, we thought it was kind of the hype of 3D printing, and we thought we could combine kind of CAD modeling automation and 3D printing, which is why we named the company CadMakers, which is not the greatest name, but at the time, we thought it was okay. But we've just stuck with it. And so like, this idea of like maybe rapidly 3D printing things and starting small and scaling up. So very, very quickly we realized that's not a good business model, and also the digital side renders a lot of the physical stuff like not even useful. So if you can solve things digitally, you don't really need physical models. Different on the design exploration side of things, like maybe what you would do. Like I get it that physical models help a lot from a designer's perspective, but we're more thinking about optimizing production and optimizing the actual construction. So it's not about design exploration. It's more about how do you build this the most efficiently way possible and find problems and get them fixed. So yeah, there's been lots of that kind of stuff, and I think the reverse of that has been true where, when we first started the company and what we were trying to do, we had lots of people say to me, hey, your business might survive for a year or two, but, digitization's coming at scale and you'll no longer need the services you guys provide. And, we were cautious of that for sure, but it definitely has not worked out that way. In fact, if anything, in 2021, a lot of the big projects we're working on are maybe less coordinated and doing, or maybe it's a bigger problem now than it was, 6 years ago. I think that has like many reasons for that, right? It's like, it's not just a technology problem. It's a process problem. It's a kind of like a risk and litigation problem and all these kind of things. So yeah, so things have worked out in the better, things have worked out in the worse, but we just get up every day and keep trying, keep going. That's really been our strategy.
Yeah, and I feel like it's part of the startup where you start with a problem and then you evolve and like finally find your market segment and problem. And I have one question on the finance side. Like, did you guys like bootstrapped it, or when was the time your company started making profit?
Good question. So we were desperate to make a product-based business at the beginning, so we tried all these different things, and what we ended up, we basically solved. We were bootstrapped, like full on, just like you hear about in the movies, storage locker, the whole thing, and just like trying to save as much cash as possible, and we didn't pay ourselves for like a long, long time, all that kind of stuff. So we started service based, and the reason we did that is because we knew we could get kind of like finance growth through sales and get a customer base, learn from the customer and learn from the problems they're having, and then try to get an insights engine. We call it insights engine going, where we could figure out maybe some products that we could build along the way. It wasn't perfectly mapped out that way, but that's basically what's happened. So we did services, solve the problem for the customer, get a feedback loop of kind of like, okay, well, what does the customer ask for? What do people need in the market? What's an area of the market that's not being served by technology well? Let's see if we can divert some of that free cash flow that we've generated into product development, and that's what we've done. So now here we are 7 years in, we're kind of like two companies in one, where we have a service business that's generating that's solving, doing digital twin, digital fabrication type works around the world, and we learn from that, and we take 100% of any free cash flow we generate and we reinvest into the business, into product development, and that's what I'm going to show you guys today. But it's been a long, difficult, challenging journey to do that. So yeah, bootstrapped, and then now we're just, it took us, how long it took us to be profitable depends how you want to look at that, because we technically, a couple of years, I'd say, but then we made a choice to go back into the world of unprofitability so we could build. So we're continuously investing back in the business, so that makes us like not profitable, but that's because we're trying to build essentially like multiple revenue streams fund through service, and then now through SaaS subscription sales, monthly and yearly subscription sales, which takes a longer time to build up.
I see. And I'm always curious, like for the initial development phase of the startup, like, and you said it's very Silicon Valley type garage story. So was it like the weekends were also busy and it took a while for you to take a break, or no work-life balance kind of stuff?
Well, I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance. I believe it's just all life. So if you care a lot about what you're doing professionally, it's not really work. You obviously got to pay the bills, but like for me, it's there's been a very blurry line on that for a long time. So I'm sure my wife would attest to that. She's not too happy with me sometimes, but so early days, we actually, I wish I had a great story for you, that we saw some great, these great stories where like, oh, we saw an opportunity in the market and we had this great idea, lightning bulb moment. There wasn't any of that. My co-founder was working at a software business. I was working in a large capital projects kind of space. We knew we wanted to work together, and we thought we could, we thought we had higher potential than what we were doing at the time. And we just started getting together on the weekends, like every weekend and almost every evening. And we worked off the end of our desk, meaning like we worked our day jobs for months, and then he left his job earlier, like 1 month earlier than me, and just we got the storage locker for a few $100 a month, which has now been demolished, but it was basically just like a little storage locker. And we started working on stuff. And technically we had already been working on stuff, but we started trying to get customers and figuring stuff out. And then I left my job 1 month later, and we just went for it. We kind of figured it out. We did the proverbial kind of lean startup approach: get a customer, serve the customer, learn, pivot, find product market fit, or in that case, service market fit, and then just kind of scale it from there, and get hire someone, and then get another customer and hire someone, and just slowly build up to where we are today, which is about 130 employees.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think like there are a lot of takeaways. I feel like personally, like you started along with your day job, so it was like when the product was being built, like you had a secure income, and also the fact that you had like service based and product based, so there was a regular cash flow, so there was no like cash burnout phase or kind of thing. Okay, we spent like a year or two, now no
Mm-hmm.
more cash, you gotta turn it down. There was like you guys like did it very smartly. I appreciate that.
Well, it's a
It
nice
is
thing for you to
indeed
say.
a
Go
it is indeed a fancy story.
ahead. Well, I mean, it's definitely the path. It's I mean, you could make a lot of arguments of what's better, to bootstrap or raise capital. One thing I'll say for us, we were always nervous about like things not working and having to like lose someone's money or something, right? And we were very much um, not that we didn't believe in ourselves, but like it's the hardest thing in the world doing a startup. And doing it the way we did it is probably the hardest, so we thought it was really important to build a business on a merit, like the business itself can run itself and can sustain itself, instead of relying on external cash that you're just looking at a burn rate and then just like looking at the clock ticking down. And it depends what type of business you are, right? If you have a big idea with a product and it takes time to do development, you know, there's often like no choice but to raise capital and go that path. And some people don't like the fact that if a service base is like it's a little less focused because you're doing a couple of things. And actually, what I've watched a lot of your shows here just to prepare for this, and you know, the scripting, tool building, problem solving world is you know, like that's what we did for a long time. Customer has a problem, we come up with some clever solution, hire a bunch of smart engineers, solve that problem, right? And be paid by service. And in some ways that's harder, but in other ways it's easier in the sense that each time you have a new problem, you start from scratch almost, or you maybe try to reuse something you built in the past, but you tweak it. Whereas when you're building a product, it's way different, right? Like you have to think about all the edge cases. You have to think about like something that just works for people. It's like you can't like on the fly write a script and be like, oh, I'll just solve this problem right now. Like, what do you need to do? It's like that doesn't work that way in products, right? You have to build a product that actually just works for the customer and solves their problem. It's a lot more difficult, and that takes more time and often takes more kind of capital to build. So, and especially in the software space. So, you know, it's not like one's better than the other, but we definitely did like the idea of trying to build a real business, right? That actually was operated, you know, efficiently, and we weren't like relying on anyone else, except we could make our own destiny, kind of thing, based on what we did.
I see. I have one last question before we move on to the technical demo and aspect. So, what are some ideas you wish you would have worked but didn't get a chance to work on it because of lack of time and resources?
If you don't mind, I'll talk a bit about our journey. So, one challenge I've had is actually no, this is going to sound like a humble brag a little bit, but it is true. Like our company, we've had no shortage of good ideas. We have lots of smart, talented people, and luckily, we work with like all these great industry leading companies that have sophisticated problems to solve. So we've worked on like almost all the things that are happening right now in the market. You know, like with computer vision and cameras on site. Spent like a long time working on this problem. We have robots. We've done a bunch of stuff with automated robots, offline programming, and this type of stuff. You know, point cloud automation. We were trying to do automatic segmentation of point clouds based on like feature recognition of CAD parts. So basically training neural nets based on synthetic data and then being able to pull out those types of objects and segment point clouds so you could drop the point clouds because it's so heavy and not useful, which is like a huge PhD level problem. We worked on that for like a year with multiple data scientists. And so my answer to your question is actually the reverse. What I've learned is I thought we were being smart and being clever. Look, all these cool things we're working on. You know, we've been very passionate about R&D from like very early in the company, and that's really my co-founder's impact on the company. He was like from day one, it was like we're all about like getting better every day. That's our big motto: 1% better per day, which is 37% compounded annually. If each person just tries to get 1% better every single day, you know, it can add up and mean a lot. And we've really done that quite well. But what the problem is when you say yes to everything like we did and we do these things, first of all, you never finish anything. You know, you never finish a product or finish like something that it can be like go to a customer and be created like a product. And you can only do a couple of things. I had to learn this the hard way. You can do a couple of things well at one time. You think you can do lots of stuff. And a lot of those ideas we worked on, like kind of the taking a BIM model, training synthetic data in a kind of a neural net, and then having image recognition, trying to find stuff from cameras on site, it's on the crane or adjacent to the site, you know, which are now tons of companies are out there doing this. So we worked on this like 4 years ago, and we did some testing and stuff, but it never went anywhere because we never really went all the way to creating a product for that and like a solution. And so what we've had to do is kind of take a step back actually and say, well, wait a second here. Like if we want to actually build something that gets sold to a customer and solves a problem, we've got to focus and so that's where we're at today. So I've had a lot of fun in those meetings. I learned a lot. We worked on a lot of stuff. We could talk what cool. I've learned a lot. That's really interesting from my own personal living, but my own personal career. But it doesn't make a business. That's the big thing. It doesn't make a business. You got to make hard decisions on what you're going to focus on. And for us right now, it's all about kind of like doing stuff smart, kind of planning and simulation in the browser. That's like our big focus right now. Computationally, it's very difficult. There's lots of problems to solve doing it, avoiding having any on-premise or using any local computing power. So we're focused on this problem at the moment.
I see. Yeah, and like it also makes a lot of sense that if you have a lot of ideas, but if it doesn't align to company's vision, sometimes the resources gets like deviated. But it's an interesting problem, but sometimes the market is not ready or the customers are not looking for it.
You know, it's funny you say that because one thing is like we thought we were helping, and it was to some degree, but we thought we were helping like bring like inspiring our. I'm just trying to pull something up while we talk about. So you're making me think of something. I thought we was inspiring our team, like giving big challenges and big problems to solve. And at first, it's true. Like you know, if you give good smart engineers a bunch of hard problems to solve, it is inspiring at first. But actually, if you don't follow through and turn it into something, it actually becomes extremely uh, um, like that demoralizing. But it's easy to lose interest because like, what am I working on? Does it have any concrete output, right? Like, are we creating anything that's going to actually go to a customer and be used, or are we just like, are we only Ring and not D'ing, right? Like, it's like you need R and D. So we're doing a lot of R, but you got to do the D too. Like R and D is for a reason. So you got to, at some point you have to, you lose people's interest if you just go forever doing that kind of stuff. So it's a very interesting interesting journey we've been on.
Yeah, and I see you do like a lot of different roles like throughout the week, like as a co-founder and as a content creator. So like how does a day or a week in your life look like?
Well, it's funny you say content creator. I wouldn't say I'm actually a content creator at all. This feature Friday thing, which has been pretty awesome, was just kind of like I think it started by, okay, well, I guess I'll answer your question. What was a day in the life? Most of my days start with getting punched in the face. I feel like I get punched in the face a lot. So with a lot big team, you often have these challenges with the team to deal with. Lots of planning, lots of kind of like helping, coaching, mentoring, inspiring others to do stuff. For a long time, I just did everything, yourself. And at some point, when you're building a business, you have to come to the realization that to scale yourself is to not have to do things yourself all the time, and helping others solve problems and make decisions and grow within the company. And so that's a big part of what I do now, is just nudge people in the right direction, hopefully, and be super like push the values, the culture of the company, which is like customer centricity. Innovation is like, if you stop innovating, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. And constantly like reinvent, getting better every day. These kind of things I'm trying to push. So that's a big part of my day. I also try to use our products ourselves. We use our products ourselves. That's a big thing. A lot of the software vendors that we've come across in the AC industry feels like they don't use their own product. Because we're like you, right? We buy software, we use software for services. Like we're in the same space, and sometimes it's quite frustrating when you're using the products. Like, did someone use this on their side? Like, so like we want to be someone that uses our own product and finds problems and extremely critical of ourselves instead of waiting for the customer to just complain and then fix it. So a lot of using our own product, a lot of marketing and branding, positioning. And then the key feature Friday thing is on Friday. Now people are coming with ideas, but for a long time it was just on Friday at lunchtime. We were like, oh, we got to come up with something. Yeah, what are we gonna do? What can we do that will be fun and my kids like it? So I keep that positive. But and that's become kind of like we started because we have a couple marketing teammates that said, hey, here's the best times to post for social media. Here's the worst times, and by far the worst is like Friday afternoon. Friday evening, right? Because most people are on. And we're like, okay, well, let's just do something Key Feature Friday. And the opposite of that is that if we can build good content and a decent following and give people a couple laughs on Friday over a beer when they're leaving work, we can get, like we'll have a larger share of a less crowded time. And so that's worked out pretty well. And it's a nice way for people to follow along our development and like new things we're launching. And so every Friday, I try to do something new to show the product, but also we have like an interview that is funny or helps people. I have a friend I worked with. He said, the construction industry, because of safety and everything, it's a very serious industry. It's like everyone's very serious about this. There's not much brevity in our industry. There's not many people joking around, having fun and being silly. And so, that's our company culture. So that's why we do it this way.
That's amazing. And I have a lot of questions on and you on this aspect, but I'll control now, and we would like to dive deeper into the tech demo.
Sure, sounds good. So what do you want me to do? I want to kind of start talking about the journey and then start open up the product and go from there. Okay. So before I dive too into it, I want to spend like maybe 2 minutes. I'm not going to do any fancy slides on the company background, but I feel like it's important for people, just to kind of paint the picture of how we got to where we are today. So doing the services first, we were big on kind of automation, modeling automation, scripting, tool building, to solve mostly construction, like the design to construction handover and the fabrication piece. So we do lots of it, mass timber, facade, large scale projects around the world. And and then we started building products first for ourselves. So our first software developers we hired that are still with us, they were building a lot of our own internal like tools, right? So making sure we stitch together all the different applications we're using and so things flow like a workflow. And so that's where we started. So we started building kind of software products for ourselves, building the capability internally ourselves. And then we started kind of listening to the customers and saying, okay, what can we build for them? And we did a very meandering path. And so we built this thing called the CM Core platform. We have a few different applications on the platform. And right now, and we kind of pushed stuff out, tested, tried, and we have a couple products on that platform. And today I'm going to talk about cmbuilder.io, which is our construction planning and simulation software or product that's on the CM Core platform. And that's kind of a big focus for me at the moment. And also the most visually easy one to demo. And the reason we built this product is because we've been doing say 4D simulations or some sort of kind of process simulation of construction projects for a long time. And a lot of the products, we started with our own pain point, which is the products that were on the market are very hard to use, expensive, high value, but challenging to use, not easy to do. And then at the end of the day, you're done with it. You have a video at the end or a file, right? So what the result has been is that like 95% of the market doesn't do this type of work. They use 2D PDF and they just draw on 2D and say, here's my crane, here's my logistics. And maybe they do a couple different phases or milestones, but it's pretty basic, right? It's digital paper. And so we decided to focus there. Now, I'm going to take you guys on a little bit of a journey if it's okay with you. I'm not even sure if I should do this, but I'm going to anyway. And about our path of software development, Mayor, you asked me to talk about our journey. So I'm going to talk about how we got started. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see that?
Yep.
So this is a video from our first MVP of cmBuilder. You're going to see it looks a lot different than it is today. So the first idea, I'm going to play this kind of slowly, was can you create, the idea is still there. Like our goal for cmBuilder is create an operating system for construction planning and make it accessible for everyone. So the making it accessible for everyone is a fairly, maybe only in the last 8 to 12 months has been an insight. At first, we were trying to do essentially like a video game for construction planning. And we had a web app that had all the logic and the way that you can essentially think of an operating system like a computer where you have tasks and resources and you're sending inputs and outputs to that operating system to say, okay, based on whatever item that you want it to do, execute these tasks. So what we had here is we were building on top of a gaming engine. So we didn't have our own engine at this time. We just had a web app that was communicating. It was built in C#, communicating to a gaming engine. It's all C++, very complicated. And the idea was that the user does what you see here is just all they do is make a couple basic, you feed it a model and you locate, say, a crane, and everything you're about to see is done automatically. So based on a logic, like a rule, this is like not a good sequence. This is just showing an MVP that when you run the code, the idea here was to say, could we potentially say, algorithmically solve for the best possible sequence given an input, which is a model, a few basic inputs by the user, which is like crane location, and this is a mass timber example, but the idea is like every single time there needs to be an operation performed, it looks at the item, the object. So let's say it's a column or a beam. I'll pause for a sec. So let's say it's a column. It's looking at center of gravity, weight, and based on a set of rules, it's saying, okay, that column is either small enough or light enough that a human can install it. So it goes and fetches a human resource and installs it, or it's bigger or too heavy that it needs to be used by a spider crane, let's say, or in this case, a tower crane. And then it just replays over and over again. So it's like, okay, beam, panel, column, is it a core element? Does it need a, what resource is the best resource, right? And this was an idea we had, which was to say, imagine you could just push a button and it generates the best possible sequence. And you can see that there's lots of stuff that doesn't work here. And this is an assembly base. So steel, mass timber, prefab, the idea kind of made sense. But it started to fall apart for us in a few different ways. One was, if you can think about all the different means and methods of building a construction site. So cast in place concrete, precast concrete, timber, heavy timber, light timber, steel core, concrete core, wood core. Like there's many different configurations of the way that you build a construction site, right? So building algorithms to solve for all that is an extremely complicated problem to solve. And so we had this kind of idea here where you could drag and drop these different dependencies or generate them inside the web app, and then it would push to the game and it would execute, right? So I don't want to go too deep into that because I could talk all day about that experience. So that didn't work for many different ways, and we made a choice. So we think that the initial problem we were trying to solve made a lot of sense, which is we need to use more sophisticated tools and intelligent ways to plan and simulate construction, and that every single project should be simulated first. If you look at the work we've done in other industries, like we worked a lot with the Model 3 team at Tesla, there's a lot of simulation that happens first, right? Simulating the build of the product buildup of like how, a frame's going to go to body in white and it's going to move along the assembly line, and things are going to happen to it. So a lot of this is simulated first, right? Kinematically and with physics and physical constraints of the real world. So, can you reach these items? Can you do these things? And it's simulated first before you push on, turn on the line. So we're very passionate that that's how the construction industry should go as well. But the challenge we have, and with the pivot, we took a small step back from what you saw there, which was, push a button, generate everything, into, okay, well, there's a lot of friction. Now I got to send you to this gaming environment to download locally installed software on premise. And, then you gotta have our web app and you got to connect the two. It's like tons of friction for the user. And a lot of the work development was C++, so it's slow, it's kind of archaic ways to do things. So we made a big decision after a long time working on this, and he said, the big bet is, can we just start building our own web engine and do everything in the web, right? So do what you saw there, but do it in the web. And that might mean taking one step back, which means building more of a user-generated approach first, which you'll see today, and then building the kind of like a sequence optimization or like the process flow up, sequencer later, kind of as we get more and more data and we get better with this. So here's where we are today. I'm going to show a little bit of an introduction, and I'll go live. So what problem are we trying to solve? In pre-construction sites planning, the teams are using dated and inefficient technology for site planning, mostly 2D digital paper or just even paper, paper and pen. At scale. So let's, of course, there's some top companies in the world that are doing stuff, but let's say the 90th percentile and down, this is how it's happening today. And we've talked to, hundreds and hundreds of companies. They're using old technology. A lot of the tech, and one of the problems why they're not using more sophisticated stuff is a lot of the products in the market are too complicated and too expensive. It's just a constraint. It's too complicated, too expensive. And there's no easy way right now to just simulate digitally the construction process, right? So you can either go high value, but high effort and high cost, which 99% of the companies in our market can't do because they don't have the time, effort, or technical know-how. It's almost all on premise. You got to get a fancy computer. You got to train people for months to be able to do some of these things. Something needs to be really easy, right? So our solution is a web platform, makes it easy to digitally simulate the construction process for bidding, planning, and winning projects. And what does that mean? You do everything in the browser. So you're modeling 3D in the browser, you're simulating in 4D directly in the browser, you're quantifying elements automatically to understand project risks and constraints, and you're sharing links, not files. So at the end of this, you don't have a video or some exe, executable file that someone has to like download, put on their laptop, and then open it and hope it's not a virus or something like that. So just sharing a link, runs in any browser without credentials, like super easy, right? It's dead easy. Our future vision for this product is that every single construction project of size, so not single family homes, but if you're a multifamily, you got a crane on site, mobile crane, or commercial, every single project is digitally simulated first, reducing risk, schedule, and money, right? Every single one. And we're going to try to make it so easy, so fast, and accessible that there'll be no reason not to, right? Right now, it's a selective thing for a lot of these companies. And we want to remove the selective thing out and say every single project is going to be simulated first. So I'm going to show it live, but just to give you a paint picture how it works. So you log in, it's all web-based. You log into your tenant, you enter an address, and you create a map tile of your address. So we're grabbing surrounding buildings, terrain, etc., from that address. After that, we've built our own. So we support like open BIM approaches. So IFC, 2x3, IFC4, STEP, and FBX. We've built converters for all of these things. So custom built converters that optimize that geometry and data flow to be running in the browser, which is pretty complicated. So we do a lot of optimization when you upload the model to essentially simplify geometry, different kind of magic, we'll call it, to be able to use it efficiently in the browser. And then after that, we have a whole whack of parametric resources that are provided out of the box for the customers. So you don't have to, upload a crane family that you made in Revit. You can just use parametric cranes directly built in a catalog inside Builder or this concrete pump truck and stuff like that. And then after you created simulations and looked at easy ways to share, adding annotations, markups, etc. I'm going to show you this live. You can now just share this and rapidly iterate to many different scenarios. I want to study 1 crane, 2 crane. I want to have access on the north of the site versus on the south of the site, etc., etc. And it's just like 1 click share, and your client can just run it like this on a browser. I'll show you. And then the cost is low, so that we're unlimited users. Because we built the engine and 98% of the product ourselves, meaning we don't have like expensive licenses we need to pay to third parties. Like many products are built on top of other people's engines, so you have to pay licensing fees, which causes the stack cost to go up, and means that the price has to go up. So we're trying to keep the cost down on our side so that we can charge a lower price and keep unlimited users, because this is a key factor for mid-market general contractors. So starting with a few $100 a month and unlimited users, you can start using the product. Some of the competitive advantages are it's 100% web-based, and it's an authoring and viewing web-based. This is what's quite unique. So there's lots of web viewers in the market, right? That you just upload a model and view it, and then maybe do reporting and other stuff. This is like you're doing the job in the browser. You're modeling, you're simulating, you're adding new geometry, you're creating the site simulation directly in the browser, and you can share it and view it in a single interface. So most of what we see on the market right now is you do some work on an on-premise authoring environment, CAD, maybe you throw it up into a vault, or you put it in the cloud after and do something with it. This is doing both at the same place, which makes a big difference. Unlimited users, so a good business model, very easy to use. You don't need to be a ninja. I know you get lots of ninjas here. We've tried to do lots of ninja type work over the years, meaning solving hard problems, writing code to solve problems. This is like targeted to all users, non-technical, and then again, sharing outputs that are interactive and smart, sharing data and intelligence instead of files. How am I doing so far? Do I have you?
Yeah. It was
I haven't
amazing
put you to sleep.
presentation.
Haven't put you to sleep yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I loved the presentation. Amazing work.
Okay, good. So that, as you can see from that first thing, so I have a bunch of tabs open, so we'll see how this goes. But this is an example of a project that we have kind of a completed scenario. So we've added that you've snapped in your address. You can overlay drawings, on top of the site map. So that's really a lot of times for pre-construction planners, they're working off 2D. Sometimes there's not even a model provided early planning. So then you can kind of like overlay 2D information on top of the map. And then we've already kind of created some basic simulations. So the first thing is we started modeling your site setup, logistics, where your trailer is going to be. This is all coming from the product. Fencing. I'm going to show you how to do this as well. If you need hoarding, like above the sidewalk, and then if you have to protect trees around the adjacent side of the building, you can show the hoarding around the trees. So this is all done. I'm going to show you after directly in the browser, and then you can actually start simulating different milestones based on the schedule. So in week 5, we're excavating phase 2. And then on week 8, you're excavating phase 3, which is cutting out the pits for the elevator shaft, or sorry, some of these big core footings, and then so on and so forth, right? You can kind of look at like, okay, we're bringing in the week 12, we're installing the crane in this location. I'm just going to turn off the resource envelope using a mobile crane. At this location, we're installing this crane. You can kind of visualize if that crane pad footing is going to clash with stuff. As you can see here, it might. So you can adjust that. I can just go in and double click this resource. It's fully parametric, and adjust this crane pad. So I can kind of say, okay, I want it to be a little smaller, so it doesn't clash. There you go, done. And then you kind of all this is coming from the product. Except the only thing that was imported was the BIM model itself, the structural model, the architectural model. Then even these like shoring elements were added from a resource, which I'll show you in a second. I'm kind of showing you the result. I'm showing you the end of the project, and then I'm going to show you how I got there. And then we can say, okay, we're using climbing formwork systems to build the core first, and so on and so forth, right? So I'm kind of just clicking through the different milestones. And then now we're bringing in the mass timber project that has timber and concrete and timber. So you can say, okay, what's the cycle times for each floor? Now we're bringing in the facade. We have outriggers over here for bringing in materials, loading the deck with materials, and so on and so forth. So this is all created pretty easily inside cmBuilder. There's also different functions you can do inside here. For example, like you can create markups that can be linked into your simulation. So in this case, you kind of have these ideas of markups that play. So excavation starts, so you can communicate the kind of plan to your client in 3D, but also add 2D information, kind of explaining things. For example, like on the let's go to the crane install day. Like just delineating like different pieces of information you want to add to that and then the camera angles and everything are stored, so it looks pretty nice that way. And then the nice thing is, if you're done running this scenario, you've modeled this, and you say, okay, what do I give? I can just hit share, generate a link. I'm gonna have this expire tomorrow. What day is it today? August 11th. I'll have this expire tomorrow. I'm gonna choose presentation mode. So my client is super low tech, let's say, and I want to make it really easy for them. So I'm gonna make a 2.5 seconds time delay. It's gonna be presentation mode, which means it's just gonna be a little play button that you get. You can either put a QR code onto a drawing, or you can just generate this link. So I'm going to generate the link here, and I'm going to actually send it to you guys. So you're welcome to play it yourself. Where's my chat? Here you go. All right, so you should see that. So the nice thing about this is that my project stakeholder doesn't need to have any credentials. So it's not like they have to create a cmBuilder account and go through the whole onboarding process. This could be anyone for that, and you can manage these links so that you don't have them kind of swimming out there for too long. But and it's a live link, so if you make a change to that, it can change anytime. So you guys can load that yourselves and press play, and just let it run right on your browser, which is really nice. So how do we do this work? So I'm going to close that and start that same site with just like a very, it's funny, I got so much data loaded at once, it's kind of slowing things down a bit. So the first things first is kind of like setting up your site. So I'm going to, you got kind of 2D mode, 3D mode. So I'm going to put it into 3D mode, and I'm going to look here. I've already delineated the outer boundary of my property line. So let's say I want it to be, and I've already put some zones here. So let's say loading zones. And so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with fencing, right? So I got a fence off my site. In this case, there's something to consider, which is a raised highway next to the site. So we're gonna be careful with over swinging in this area. So I'm just gonna go to logistics and facilities, and you can see there's a whole bunch of temporary resources. Just we're constantly adding more temporary resources to the scene. So you can choose different types of fencing: Jersey plywood, Jersey chain wire fence, different types of chain wire fence. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Jersey chain wire fence. So I'm just going to click here, and then once I'm on the map, again, I'm just in the browser, I can just go ahead and I can choose a point resource, polyline, polygon. I'll show you what the difference is in this case. Linear resources are best modeled in as polylines, because you can kind of, like you'll see here, just draw on here. Let's say I want to, oops. Sorry. So let me push the button. So let's go here. And I'm just drawing on the map. Really dead simple. Again, the idea of this is to make this like super simple to use. And I'm just going to hit done. And I've created a fence. Instantly, it calculates, the panel height of the fencing, panel length, the quantity of each panel. So based on these panel lengths, how many you have, and then you have different kind of resource material. You have different. You can change the spacing between panels parametrically if I wanted to like make this for whatever reason like that. Right, you can do it, or usually your fencing will not have any spacing between it. So just put 0. And you can have it follow terrain or a straight line. For example, if you have a super sloped site, it starts it will try to calculate. Actually, it'll look like this. So if you have a super slope, I'm going to come back to this one because I'm going to show the excavation feature, which is really nice. So if you have a big sloped terrain, your fencing will try to follow the terrain. So it looks a little bit wonky, but you can choose it not to do this. So you have some features or some functionality there. Yeah. So hit create, and there you go. You got a fence. So, the idea is to be just dead simple and directly in the browser. Now, if I wanted to put a gate here, I just go to gates. I can select different types of gates. I like this one, the vehicle sliding gate. So I'm just going to click on this, and this is a point. So it's going to automatically find that polyline, and then basically instantiate this gate along the polyline. So I click it here, I hit done, and it'll automatically remove what's needed from the fence. And then I can just double click that and change the parameters here and slide this gate close. So so you can have an idea of, I want to show that this is a sliding gate in this location. I didn't have to like remove the fence. You just place it on that polyline where the fencing was, and it automatically removes it and calculates where it needs to be, like where the rest of the panels need to be. So it's really made to be dead simple. So that's the idea of kind of like, a point resource, and let's say a polyline resource. And then you have some sliders here. So if you want to like change the height of this fence for whatever reason, you can slide and change the height. So you see how it's changing. So it's not quite as sophisticated what you do with Grasshopper. But again, our customers don't care about that. They just want it to work and make it be dead easy. So let's just go ahead and say this is what I want. Okay, great. So we've already set up, the fencing, and then I've delineated the excavation. For excavation, that's a super flat site. So I'll show you one of the coolest things we've built, I believe, in the last little while is our excavation engine. So this map tile, depending where you are in the world, the top of the map. So as you can see, we have the topography here following kind of the topography. But depending where you are, the top of the map can have can be off the actual. So the first thing we do, let's say I want to build a building here, is I go to excavation. So if I go to SiteWorks, excavation, and the first thing I want to do is I want to create a boundary excavation. So what this is doing basically is we're taking a reference of the geolocation of the map, and we're going to create our own block model so that we can control the geometry much better. So if I wanted to go here, let's say I'm just going to draw the big boundary excavation. So I'm not worried so much about like the detailed excavation at this point. There's like, what's the big kind of boundary excavation of the area? Let's go here and here. And then now what I've done is it basically, the tool goes in and like it does a bunch of math to essentially map that into a new surface that you can control. And the next stage we're going to do is we're going to allow you to control the top surface. So if you have a survey point you can import, you can basically double click this and then drag it up to match the survey point. So it's just that much more accurate when doing excavation. So as you can see now, if I go up to my viewer control and I hide my terrain, now I have a 3D, basically I created a block model directly in the browser of my excavation that I can start chipping away at, right? So the next step I could do is I could go in here and say, I want to do a cut operation. And I want to cut, let's say just for the benefit of this demo, I'm just going to put it in 2D here. I'm going to rotate here. Let's say I wanted to cut half this site. Now, of course, in real life, you'd be following a geotechnical drawing or something like that, but I'm just showing feature function at the moment. So I go here, right, hit done. Now I can just hit the elevation of how much I want this to go down. Let's say I want this to go to 6. And close that, put it in 2D. And there you go. I just did a cut from that volume, right? So this is kind of how and then if I wanted to cut this, I can work its way down. What that looks like in real terms, in a realistic case, is you have all your cut operations here on the left that you can deal with. And then I can create milestones to say, okay, here's my model, right? Here's what I need to build. It's on this crazy slope site. So I've created a few operations to show, the first excavation, bulk excavation, is going to take this part down. And then it's going to go a little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit down until you get to the bottom of the hole. And then you have your detail excavation. So for example, these detail cuts, I can go in here and edit these details if I want. I could change the slope wall ratio, for example, from say 2 to, just make it crazy for effect. You make it 2 to 6, and it's going to change my slope wall ratio. And then I can just slope out from sketch, slope in from sketch. So I'm doing 3 to 4 because that's typically what we see for, let's say, for like cutting out a footing. And then there you go. So you can do all this. And now excavation in the planning phase for pre-con is almost never done in 3D because you basically have 2D information. And it's really hard to do stuff like this and go, okay, give me an earthwork takeoff by operation. So as I'm doing that cut, it's automatically calculating the volume of dirt being removed. And then you can provide a swell factor. Swell factor was referring to the fact that earth, when it's not pre-excavated, is dense, right? And then you excavate it and it swells. So like it takes more volume as you excavate out of the ground. So the next operation we're working on is fill. So if you're going to go cut and then you're going to fill back, you have to take into account the swell factor, and like where you're going to store that off-site, or if you're going to store that adjacent to the site, or if you're going to, sometimes you have to pay. Often you have to pay to remove that dirt. So the swell factor, so we'll be able to calculate automatically how many trucks you need, for example, based on the swell factor. It'll tell you, okay, you need this many trucks because based on this volume of excavation and this swell factor, it means you need this many trucks and in this sequence. So this is something we're working on at the moment. So excavation is kind of an exciting one because it's net new to the world, at least I believe. I haven't seen, I mean, unless you want to go into like Civil 3D, which is a very expensive and very like complex. All those kind of systems are point solutions in the excavation world are like not easy to use, right? So just that's the very basic idea. So anyways, I'm back into this idea. So I'm gonna create a new milestone here. I'm gonna keep editing. I'm gonna change the week based on my schedule, and I'm gonna call it bulk excavation. Hit save. So now I'm week 3. Now everything that I do in this milestone is going to get automatically recorded. So if I go in back in, let me just do like a really simple excavation for today. So I'm going to hit excavation, I'm going to cut, I'm going to go from here. I'll just make an excavation here, right? -6, let's go -8. Done. Great, now I have an excavated site. Now the next one I'm going to do, just kind of riffing here. Let's say it's 2 weeks after that. I'm going to start driving piles. So I'm going to go into my resources, temporary works, equipment and vehicles, and then start looking at different types. You can see there's a whole bunch of different resources available. So you have kind of other lifting equipment, removal equipment. I believe it's in removal equipment. Nope. Or I could just drop an excavator, click. That's how easy it is to put an excavator in. So I just click on the resource, click on the map, and it's done. Soil equipment. I want to drive it. I want to show that I want to drive piles here. Boom. I click, zoom to selection. As you can see, if I double click that resource, I can adjust all the parametric aspects of that from here. So if I want to show the head here going down, I can adjust that here, and I can rotate the pile driving machine here. Okay, so if I wanted to show, okay, on this phase, in this milestone, we're going to be moving, we're going to be driving piles in this location. I can just kind of quickly identify how many pile machines am I going to need, et cetera, and get into the next one. And you can put an install date and remove date. So let me say, just for the benefits of this, I'm going to remove it in a couple of days. Edit resource details. I'm going to remove this one in a couple of days. If this asset has any like documentation or anything like that, it'll all come here. So you can do that. Like if you have a cut sheet or any type of like 2D information, I'll show you how these resources work in a second. But let's say I'm just showing you like not a realistic simulation, but just showing you like the idea of like how the resources work and on the map and how easy it is to just click and place resources on the map. So let me create another milestone just for the benefit of this and say crane install save. Okay. So now those things are gone. And oh, actually, no, it's funny. I actually think I forgot to hide this one. So let me go ahead and delete this, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, I was supposed to duplicate this before I started. So someone, actually, I just realized, I think there's a template in here. I may have messed up. I may have messed up my teammates thing. So that's okay. So let's talk about crane, right? So once you want to place a crane, it's a big deal. So in this case, I just go up here and I can let's turn on the model for now, because I want to visualize kind of like what the model is going to look like and where my constraints are going to be with regards to this. So if I, you can hide different elements easily from the data tree. So this is like imported BIM model. So you can see I'm just kind of hiding, showing like, MEP, anything that you want, you can bring in from your model, you can. So let's imagine we have this whole thing and I want to put a crane, let's say, yeah, on this side here. I'm going to put a crane here. So I'm just going to go into equipment and vehicles, fix cranes. We have a bunch of different crane options. I will use, let's see here. I'll use this one. I click, then I can just, it's just going to automatically raycast onto the map wherever you want to put it. So I'm just going to put it here for now. And there you go. You have a crane. So it's pretty straightforward to model a crane inside cmBuilder with real world constraints. As you can see, you have like the load tables of that crane. You can adjust all the parameters of that crane directly by double clicking the resource and hitting here. So if I want to change the heights, I can change the height directly here based on the real world constraints of that crane. So let's say it's 275 feet. I can adjust the jibs. Anything that is adjustable, I can adjust here directly in the browser, right from the resource. And it's all using the real world constraints of that crane. So this one doesn't have crane tiebacks, but you can also have crane tiebacks where you can model, okay, which panels we're going to leave out up the tower of the crane. And then you get a bunch of information here on this crane. So modeling the crane is a pretty big deal, and something that takes our customers a long time to figure out. And the crane pad, for example, I'm adjusting here, how big is that crane pad going to be? And is that crane pad going to be clashing with footings or other kind of elements there? So the idea is to make, there's a lot of, you're a computational designer. There is a ton of complexity to make that dead simple, right? Like in terms of making this a smart parametric resource and just click and dropping into the browser and allowing the user to manipulate that crane is really kind of a key differentiator of the product. So now that I've kind of turned on the model, I'm going to turn it back off, and then you can start continuing on with your planning. Like maybe you say, I want to show my client like where we're going to set up a mobile crane to install the crane, because mobilization and demobilization of the crane is like a huge deal in most of our customers will tell us that. So if I want to just show this, I'm going to hide here. I'm going to fix cranes, mobile cranes. As you can see, there's a bunch of different mobile cranes here. So we have a 400-ton, 100-ton telescopic truck. It's not going to be a crawler. It's most likely going to be, let's use this 400-ton. So I'm just going to click that, place this in the map, and then you have the resource there. I'm going to rotate this. Oops, should do it this way. Move it over here, and then rotate. Come on, there you go. And then I'm going to visualize like, okay, well, it doesn't look very good fitting this in this location because I'm over the fence. Like this is a real world size of this crane. So I'm going to say, okay, this might need to be done outside of the fence. So let's move it over here. Say it's not going to get inside. I'm going to adjust all my parameters here. So I'm going to pull like for example, my outriggers. There you go. So I can visualize where my outriggers are going to be, because that often is something that's, these types of things are very hard to plan and see in 2D because you just see a block, which is mobile crane. And often customers tell me that, okay, we thought the staging area for our mobile crane would work, but it actually didn't work because of the outriggers. So here you can just quickly model that. And then what I want to do now is I want to pull this crane arm up and out. Boom. And then I can just visualize, okay, in this case, it's pretty dead simple, but you might want to visualize based on this crane location, which could be snapped to a grid line overlaid with a 2D drawing. Can I reach all the areas I need to reach for this crane, right? So we got that's really what the decision we're trying to drive with this product is stuff like that. Quickly and rapidly, how are we going to mobilize the crane? How are we going to demobilize the crane? Where's the location going to be? Do we have to shut off traffic? Do we need flaggers? So if I just go ahead and accept this and I go, okay, I'm going to need to have a flagger here. Routes and path safety. Go to safety and dust control, fire, safety, construction worker, traffic control. I'm going to drop a flagger here. And I'm going to zoom to selection and say hi to my buddy. We got a flag, we got a little flagger here. I always find it a little creepy going up to these things and just like, it's a bit weird. Okay, this is not adding value. But that's the idea. Like if you need to show flagger, routes, traffic control, swept path of this truck that's coming down, this is a really useful tool that way. Right, and then ultimately you get to the end result, which is what I had before, which is like a really simple way to simulate your construction plan. And now, where is all this information coming from? So I'm going to go into my company space and go into resource library. And so there's basically like a big resource library coming out of the product here with all the different types of like resources that you would need: overhead power lines, the different fencing, the different types of cranes. So if I go into this crane, let's click this one. Actually, no, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go into my company catalog. So there's a bunch of resource library catalogs that anyone can have, and then you can bring into your own company catalog select resources. So if I wanted to go to my company catalog. So I'm in my company catalog now, which is just mine, and I want to build a family of cranes. I can easily take, one smart parametric crane and make a bunch of instances of it. So tower head crane, and I can actually edit this crane. So I look at cost, documents, configuration. So this is what you'll appreciate as a computational designer. So instead of like making them program the parameters of this resource, any of these resources, we provide a simple UI based on certain base fixed parameters like tower length, tower base rotation, front arm length, hook height length, rear length. You can just add the values here and then save that as an instance that says this is a PECO SK2251. And then every time you use that resource inside the map that I just showed you, it's the parameters of that crane are only going to move to what you've set here, right? So this is how you can make sure you're using real world parameters and real world constraints on these resources, okay? And then the nice thing is this is going to be dummy data because this is just our own environment. Every single time you use that crane on every project, it keeps track of where it was, what the cost was. So you can start to kind of have like a living database of the resources you're using across projects. You can link documents. So in this case, I have the spec of this crane linked to the object, and then you just get a little basic idea of the resource here. So you can kind of like you can look, okay, this one's got a crane tieback, simplified view of this. It's not parametric in this case because it's only going to work off these configurations. Okay, yeah, so I've talked a bit about, how how you model, how you use import like BIM through IFC4, IFC2 2x3 into our web engine, and then we have resources. You can request resources here pretty easily, so you can just make a quick request. Say I need a, whatever special fencing, and describe the resource, what category it is in, and then within 24 to 48 hours, we turn around that resource for you. So if anyone has any resource that they need on the project and it's not in the product already, you can just go up here and request it. Also can post bugs. We're very passionate about feedback loops. We have a whole feedback app inside here. So if I go on our platform, this whole feedback app is built just to make sure that users understand that we've listened to their issues, and then you're seeing a full life cycle of any bug or any feature request that you've submitted. So you can see here, this one, edit mode is in need UI. So we're working on the UI side of this thing. These are new ones. And then you can see different types of features and bugs. Have they been confirmed? Have they been answered? Have they been, and then the user basically gets pinged when that feature request has gone live. So this, all users can have access to feedback when they get their subscription. Okay, I don't know, man. I think that's pretty much it. With the next kind of big things for us. I mean, way to get started is just go on to cmbuilder.io, and then you can just you can start a free trial. It's a company product, so you got to kind of use your company email, and it's built for businesses. But you can get a bunch of information here on cmbuilder.io, and you can start. It's frictionless. You start a free trial and start using the product, and all the pricing is there, and it's meant to be really simple. And we definitely are passionate about making it as accessible and easy to use for anyone. And the next few big things we're working on are, we just pushed to like a 10x improvement in load times of big models, doing what we call chunking, which is essentially like in the uploading process, we rationalize the model and do a bunch of kind of simplification so that you can load in the browser faster. Then we're doing concrete pour manager, schedule integration, and a few other big features right now. So we're pretty excited. It's growing. The product's growing. We're growing customers by about 30% per month right now. So it's been on a pretty big uptake, and getting lots of good feedback from users, and we're just gonna keep going. I'll stop there.
That's incredible, Javier. Like, I'm sold by your product because I have worked on 2 housing projects, and there are a lot of planning phase where we work on 2D about crane and excavation, and I could see the value that a lot of ifs and buts will be removed, and one could actually simulate and try it out that, okay, this doesn't work. There might be this clash detection when you're working. So a lot of potential delays in construction could be avoided, and that value is a lot.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it's even as an architect, we talk to lots of good friends, architects in New York and stuff. And they design all this work, and they often do it in 3D. And it's like, you want, most of the architects I talk to, they want that data leveraged downstream, right? If you can, if it's just for planning and for like the purposes of like realizing the most efficient way to build your design, why wouldn't you, right? So this makes it really easy for them. They don't have to have a Revit license or a SketchUp license or an Navisworks license. They could just load it directly here. They can give their model to your GC, they put it in Builder, and they're off to the races, right? So and they can start to like model the process to build the building around your design, right? And make sure that it meets your design intent and the criteria, and make sure that they can build as efficiently as possible and reduce risk.
I see. I have few questions on the demo. So you showed the crane placement and all the parameters one could play with. So how does that placement link with the construction sequencing? Like, it's right now it's a 3D model, but I need to map, okay, this week the building will rise and the crane will rise at the same time. How do you link it?
By schedule, by dates. So basically, like even the jumps in the crane. So you have a crane install date. Let's say you jump the crane every 8 floors or something like that on a concrete tower, like you would do in Chicago. and you basically just set the milestone dates as a new date, and then when you're in that milestone active, all the changes are recorded. So you would just like load the parts of the building that you want to show on that milestone and the crane, and then when you play it back, it plays automatically. So the idea is to take the idea of the milestone is really important. So and this is coming from feedback from most of the construction planners we deal with. That's really how they think. They think in milestones, right? What does it look like when we mobilize? What does it look like when we're on the bottom of the hole? What does it look like when we're at the podium? What does it look like when we're done? When we're weather tight? What does it look like when we're demobbing? Those are the big milestones. Or even like, how do you get a crane out after? Let's say you have a multi-tower project with multi-cranes. You don't want to be boom bound and you have a situation where it's hard. These are very hard things to do in 2D. And it's amazing that these superintendents can think in 3D, and they can, just with experience, they can think it through. But it's much more valuable to have a tool like this to be able to just like quickly simulate that and visualize that, so that someone that doesn't have 30 years of experience and can think in 3D can also like help solve those problems, or even communicate to them that this is going to be a risk. So that's how it works. And I didn't show crane optimization. We do have an AI-based crane optimization tool. So what it does is I can show a little bit if you want. I don't know how are we doing for time?
Like I'm fine. Like it's up
Okay.
to you. Like I don't have any time limit.
I can take a couple more minutes. So let's go here. Oh, I'm not sharing. Share again. So I know you're big on the machine learning AI stuff. So it's basically a genetic algorithm that takes different constraints. So let's use this one for example. I'm just going to go into my temporary works, equipment and vehicles, and go to fixed cranes. So now you have the option to do what I showed you today, but you also can just basically solve for the best location for the crane. So the first thing you need to do is define a property line. So I'm going to just go here. I'm going to say, okay, the property line is from here to here to here, oops, to here to here. Okay. So I put in a property line just for now. And then I'm going to go back into temporary vehicles, fixed cranes. Okay. So what it does is it asks you 5 sets of questions. So the first one is, do you have a model? Yes. I didn't show you the massing. Probably should have. I'll show you the massing after. So if you don't have a model, you can quickly create like a massing inside Builder. Surrounding buildings, yes. Can you place the crane inside the footprint? You can say yes or no. I'll say no for now. And do you have a property line next? And then you say, okay, what's the critical lift? So let's say I had air handling unit on here. You could just grab it from the model, or you could just, so it's called pick from the view, or you could define the dimensions. And I could just say, okay, this is 2 meters by 2 meters by 3 meters. And it's 1,500. Okay. And you place, right? And then I'm just gonna drag here, put it here. So it creates that volume. Very topographic site. Have to, yeah, okay, good. Let's move this up and move this over. Let's say this had to go here, which is zoomed in. Put it up there. The reason this is important is because it's going to only select cranes that have the reach to make this, and the load table to be able to make this pick. So let's just put it here for now. Let's imagine it was on this floor. Okay, next. Then you can choose all the available cranes that you want to allow into this simulation. So yeah, let's just pick this one. Let's say we have these 2 cranes to choose from. Echo hammerhead and a Terex flat top, or hammerhead, sorry. And then you can define different like zones. So for example, where's my loading zone? So I'm going to put my loading zone add zone. So I'm going to put my loading zone here. And then you can also define no-fly zones, avoid zones, overswing zones, etc. And then how close to the building you can get. So you can either do it in feet or meters. And then how many cranes for the solution. So this could be up to 2 cranes, but it's probably 1 or 2 cranes. And then you're on optimize. Oh, I think I did the wrong thing. Yeah, so I think one of the cranes I picked didn't have the load time, but you get the idea. So the idea is that there's 2 ways to do it. So essentially what it's doing is it goes through the available cranes. So it checked me there, so I didn't have the proper load table. One of the cranes I selected, the load table was incorrect. So you have to have the load table set up, which is something that you set up in advance, and then it basically will just place the cranes automatically on the map for you, right? And then so I'm going to close this. And the last thing was, let's say I don't have a model. It's really easy to do these anyways. So if you don't have a model, you can snap in a drawing and you can just go into buildings and do massing, and then you can do detailed massing. So if I wanted to build a project here, if I wanted to build a new building here, I could do any shape. Okay, and I can change the color. Okay, here, red, change the heights, make it 25 stories. Confirm. And then what I can do is, let's say I want to change floor 3 or floor 4 and above, I can just hit edit floor perimeter. Right, and above, so I can just like, let's say I wanted to pull like a podium or something in here. I can just move, I can just edit these points, just pull them back. And then I'm gonna hit done. And then I've created a podium. So this is if you don't have like, and all these levels can be used in the simulation as well. So like you can simulate the floor build up from here. Sometimes we use the core, these for showing cores. Let's say if you're doing like prefabricated concrete cores or steel cores. So it's a nice thing. It can be integrated into the model or standalone, and you can like simulate directly with the massing as well. So the idea is like, the reason it's low definition is because all you really care about in this case is, can I place, you know, a crane, and where's the best location? If I'm going to put a hoist, for example, if I go to hoist, I want to place a double car Alamac hoist. I just want to put it here and just like check that, right? It's the idea is that it's not doesn't need to be as detailed. It just needs in the early stage planning process. It's often more than enough to, you know, visualize. Okay, can I do a hoist here? And will it reach what the best location is for that? So there's your hoist. So yeah, that's the idea. So as you can see, I'm just kind of quickly throwing stuff in. And the idea is that you could build that out and it becomes your logistics plan that you can share with your project stakeholders, like your client and you know, city inspectors, things like that.
That's
All right.
great. Yeah, I have one question on the
Yep.
ML part as well. Like, does your like users constantly update the sequencing model? Because let's say, ideally, if from my experience, not a single construction project goes as per the initial timeline. There are always some challenges and some delays. So, do the
Yeah.
users update?
They do. So there's two concepts. What I didn't get into is like this concept of scenario. So if you want to study multiple scenarios, like 1 crane versus 2 crane or different access, you can like run them and then you can like analyze which is the best one. And then yeah, so right now we're focused fully on pre-construction. So there are use cases in construction, you know, as built versus as designed and progress and stuff like that. But you know, so you can use the product for those things, but they're not a focus for us at the moment. So what we're more focused with is like early stage pursuit, early stage planning, and then and updating as the design changes, right? So as you get more information, you have the concept of building sets. So you can have your 50%, your 75%, your tender set, and you just swap out the old lower fidelity information with new higher fidelity information as you get closer to 100% construction documentation, let's say, where there's a lot more details, a lot more, the design is more fixed. So we do have that concept. It's just upload a new model and replace, right? And now you update your site logistics with the new design information. Or if the design changes quite a bit, you can go in there, quickly change the simulation as well.
Yeah, because like I just had a thought on those lines that what if there's a feature where one could simulate like 1,000 different scenarios and predict like what action they should do right now to save the construction delay or make the cheapest construction possible. So it it's quite interesting because like as you mentioned earlier, the sequencing problem is also very complex because there are several parameters to play with, so one can't like hard code it. It's also very subjective, like things on depending what material and resources they are dealing with, and also like climate.
Yeah, totally. The first version that we used, that the gaming, we had the concept of we were trying to look at like importing historical weather data and then how allowing the user to um, like anticipate time of operations in the winter versus the summer, right? And have like a factor for that. So we don't currently have that in the product today, but it's something that we had and we kind of took out because of complexity. And that's something we would like to bring in the future.
Yeah, and I'm asking on like behalf from a university perspective, are you guys open for like sharing this construction sequencing data for research or like collaboration?
The data, no, the data right now, the customer owns the data, right? So, we're pretty specific about how the commercial relationship works with our customers. So they own the data, we own the tech. But what we are very open with in research, if you want to, if your old construction technology classmate or University of Illinois is interested, we make the product available for educational use. Like we already have a couple schools that are using this and helping students. And we're very passionate about that, and we're involved in some other kind of not-for-profit, like making the product available for them at no cost so they can learn and get better. And so if you have people that are interested, let me know, because I would be happy to let the students use it for the semester. Helps us get good use cases too, because it's amazing what the students can produce often. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I see like especially construction management and even architecture design students, they do like like simulation of construction sequencing, and like having tools like that like will give an more edge about like how to think about design, keeping construction in mind.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's I feel like, and you're doing a good job of this. The design side of things gets a lot of it's the fancy stuff, it's the cool stuff. The technology tends to flow there first, and now the kind of proliferation of construction tech is definitely taking off. Started with document management, RFI management. Now it's moving to Clash and stuff like that. And in my opinion, where we want to have the biggest impact is this idea of simulation, or like build it before you build it, and making it really easy for people to do that. So I think that's the next frontier is like, and then after that, in the future for us very much is like the construction site is going to change. It's going to turn into a series of semi-autonomous and autonomous equipment. And you're going to need a really strong simulation engine that can interact the digital and the physical world, from the twin to the physical world with sensors and such, and be able to, like almost like a PLC did in the plants in the factories of 20 years ago. You need a brain for the construction site. So that's long term where we want to get to is, okay, upload the digital twin. You have different anchors, spatial anchors, you have IoT sensor capability, you have a simulation, and you have the physical world. And connecting those two in a much more powerful way is something that we think in 10 to 12 years, 15 years from now will be the way you build construction sites.
I see. And also maybe like having a drone delivery asset in cmBuilderio.
Yeah, the drone is interesting. We haven't done we have some point cloud. It's in our roadmap, the point cloud stuff. It depends on if you're doing point cloud or photogrammetry or both. But the drone stuff's very interesting for sure. And again, that's more of a construction phase activity, progress monitoring and stuff like that. But it's definitely something we're looking into.
Yeah. And one thing, like I feel personally bad, like each construction project has its own like lessons learned, but there is not like a central repository where like everyone is sharing that, okay, we did this experiment in this construction project, but didn't work out. So we like lessons learned because like we are doing everything from scratch, like for a new project. So why not like build up on past lessons? It would be
Mhm.
good to have.
No, I think a lot of the concept of construction planning lives in the heads of a few people in each firm, right? And so there's a really exciting uh, opportunity to have a living database that's web, it's on the cloud, it lives with you forever, and you have every single job and every resource you used and every decision you made kind of tracked, right? And then you can, we're not there yet, but we do think like there'll be a lot of analytical type of opportunities moving forward to give more insights into the data for our users to say, hey, maybe suggesting things, right? Like based on the some meta features of this project, the last time that you did this, maybe start with that, right? And tweak and edit. So again, hopefully driving faster and more accurate decision making in the early stage planning. We have a couple customers told us that, anecdotally, they say like an extra hour spent in planning leads to 10 plus hours saved on site, but no one has extra time to do planning. So you got to be fast, you got to be efficient, it's got to be easy, or else no one's going to do it, and it's going to be cost effective. So this is why we think there hasn't been much of it done yet, because it's too expensive, takes too long. And so people just revert to what they know, which is like, I'm just going to do this in PDF, 2D PDF, right? And they're already using it, and it's like, okay, I just dropped a couple blocks on there and I'm done. So yeah, I agree with you. The learning from each job is a really passionate thing for us.
Yeah. And I think like tools like cmBuilder, like because of the quick modeling, they have like shorter feedback time for different ideas and decision making. So I hope like we get in like currently like a person based on their few projects experience make the decision. But if we have like collective data driven planning feature, it would be amazing. I have a question from Sujay. Uh, he asked, does adding more construction hardware help optimize timeline of the project better? If the same project is simulated using one crane versus two crane and a boom cement pump, is there a noticeable difference in time saved?
Well, so right now we have there's no like, at the moment, there's no reporting tool that automatically tells you this versus that is the delta or like the savings. But what it does do is right now is allow you easily to visualize, like people already have. It was one thing I'm actually quite passionate about. People talk about construction and technology being in the Stone Age and everyone's slow. To some degree, it's true. But long story short is, people they're very practical in construction, right? People are very practical. So a lot of those productivity rates, they have them, right? They know what the productivity rate is, especially on concrete towers, let's say. Like there's most of these builders that build concrete towers, it's almost optimized. Like there's not that much more they can do to go faster. They're at the behest of how fast concrete cures, for example. So, but they do know that if I add a second crane, and we increase our labor by 1.5, not 2, but 1.5, because now you have more people on the live deck and it's less efficient. They do know that, like, okay, my cost went from X to Y, which is higher, but my productivity also went from X to Y. And my productivity is going to leave in schedule reduction, and it's an equation at that point. Now, we do hope to provide tools in the product in the future that allow you to automatically quantify that. We call that kind of like we were doing like 4D hackathons and stuff in the past where we wanted to run those types of instead of design for manufacturing assembly, it's like design for construction. So it's like design for construction assembly. So how do you simulate quickly and say, okay, based on the crane location, based on the pick area, based on the final destination, we have a rate the crane moves based on the load. Like you can start calculating some of this stuff, right? And that's a bit more sophisticated than what most of our customers need. But it's an interesting thing that if you could do it quickly and easily, if you had the data, it'd be really powerful, in my opinion.
I see. And I have just few questions. I know it's a
No, that's okay.
uh,
I got a couple more minutes.
yeah. So I was wondering, like, if you had like a cost parameter in the demo you showed. So does the tool provide at the end like the total cost in logistics, or is there any feature like that?
Yeah, so the 5D is there. It's more like in a beta level, so that's why I didn't show it. So that we call it resource schedule. So like essentially your temporary resources. So your kind of general conditions or general requirements. Often the general contractor costs, like the cost of building the project, not like the materials, but like I need a crane, I need a rent. Oh, I didn't show. We have scaffolding, these kinds of things. So we calculate it now. We put it there. We put it into a resource schedule based on like a master format structure. So it's using the master format structure. So what's in beta is that we don't have the durations. Like you can't drag and drop nicely yet. It's just like we're kind of working on it. It's always a matter of you know what do customers want and in what order. So the cost is obviously very important, but a lot of these other features have come ahead of that. And but yeah, that's the end goal will be that you can basically create your in real time you generate your general conditions. And so right now you do a little bit of that, but we don't have the duration. So if it's 12 months for the crane, we don't have make it really easy to sum that. So we're working on that.
Yeah, and also it's a bit challenging problem because like cost versus time, you can do like a project at a higher cost with a lesser time duration, but also sometimes there are like people take loans, so like the interest will be saved in longer term. So a lot of things to optimize in that area.
Totally. Yeah, totally. There's so much that goes into that. And there's reasons why there's entire software products that do just quantity takeoff. It's a complicated thing. So we're trying to focus at first on net new things to the world, like the modeling excavation in the web that's new. The kind of real-time simulation and viewing in the mirror, we think that's new. The way that we have kind of like really smart parametric resources in the browser, that's new. Calculating a Gantt chart of resource schedule, it's not new. It's needed, it needs to come. But like in terms of an innovation and like building new things, we're focusing there. Like concrete pour manager in the browser, that's new. There's lots of new stuff that we can build that we think is accretive to the overall like industry and the market we're serving. But but there are like checkbox items like those that need to be in the product as well.
Got it. And what is your piece of advice to young professionals who are entering into the construction tech area, who wants to solve problem and do like amazing new features like you guys are developing?
Um, hmm. I guess my first piece of advice is don't believe all the stuff you hear about construction being in the Stone Age and these people. How could these people do these things? Like respect the game. That's the first one. Respect. So if you're a young upcomer, like first thing, respect those old school architects that can sketch by hand and can do things and use SketchUp. It's like a low tech. They use 2D. Like respect the game. They have a lot of knowledge and know-how, and when you bring new automations, it better be net positive. It better add more value than what already happens, right? And instead of just saying like, "Wow, I got this fancy tool, this script I built, isn't that amazing?" If it doesn't if it's not really making the process better, just be careful with that, right? Because there's a lot of you got to really prove yourself and prove that the product's better than what already exists. And then, but that's that one side of like respect the game. Second one would be, like there's just so much that could be done better. And like learning how to script first. Visual programming is probably the lowest barrier to entry. So start learning those types of things, understanding like asking yourself constantly, is there a better way to do this? Can we find a more efficient way to do this? Like it's a great place to start. Like, you have to design a bunch of you're drafting, you got a bunch of bubbles and views you need to create, like start there. A lot of people are already doing this, but it's a great phrase for you to learn how to solve real problems that save time and save money and bring value. And then also it's like keep one foot in the future too. So it's like, a lot of what we're doing today is going to be rendered completely obsolete pretty soon. People take a long time to shift, user behavior shifts, but I am of the belief that we were struggling when I showed you that MVP of like we were building that gaming video game for construction planning, basically. Like we struggled for different reasons. We killed that we still have the code and stuff, but we kind of killed that thing for a specific reason. But I kind of got lucky, like that world is going to change too. Like, everything is going to the internet, everything's going to the browser, everything's going to the cloud. Cloud computing is going to take over, streaming is going to take over. So like working on stuff that's like for on-premise locally installed solutions, there's going to be a certain faction of the market that wants this still for a long time for different reasons, but like that's not the future. The future is digital twins on the internet, connected to the web, runs on your phone, links to the physical world some way. That we're a long ways from actually doing that. There's a lot of people talking about it, but doing that's hard. But that's where everything's going. So it's like respect the past. This is my summary. Respect the past, respect the game. Make sure you're bringing more value than what already exists. If you're going to introduce new technology, think about where you can start, which is solving real problems that make people's lives really easier, and then have one foot in the future, right? One foot in the future. So like, if you're not building stuff that's web-based and that's like easy to use and all about kind of like accessible from anywhere, focusing on cloud computing, these kind of things, like I think you have a potential to be building a solution that is like, is once you launch it. And I know the last thing, I don't know if you've seen Build the Right It. There's a great talk by a Stanford professional called Build the Right It. And it's changed the way I look at everything with product development. I highly recommend you guys, every single person on here, watch it. Build the Right It. The summary of this is usually you think the reason your product might not work is because it's technically difficult, when in reality that's like the easiest part is often building the product. The hardest part is getting someone to like your product and pay for it. so prototyping before you even do a prototyping, getting people, if you pay then you build it, instead of if you build it then will you pay. So like it's changing the whole mentality of product development to be focused on rapid iteration, talking to customers, getting to product market fit in the cheapest cost-effective way as you can, and testing lots of stuff to know that you built the right it, because we've definitely made mistakes with that in the past as well.
See, that's a great piece of advice. And I was about to ask that, is there any book or video which was very impactful when you were developing, or any event?
Build the Right It is there's lots of stuff. I'm a very passionate reader, so business wise and otherwise, but like the Build the Right It thing from a product development perspective is really great. There's a talk by I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's an old Microsoft product manager for many years, and he's got like some tenets that the first two I remember very distinctly. Is like, first thing is listen to your customer. Like, listen to your customer. Second rule is don't listen to your customer. What this means is you listen to your customer for the pain point, for the problem, but when it comes to the solution, that's your job. You need to invent the future of the solution, because people will say, well, I want it to, what my problem is, like, what I would really like is to have this. No, don't listen to that, right? Because like, for example, 4D modeling, right? You'd be surprised how many people just say, oh, you have to have a Gantt and you have to have the thing here with a timeline. It's like, well, why? Because that's what 4D modeling is. Like, well, why? Because the only couple of products that exist are like this. Like, you can reinvent these things, right? They don't have to be this way. So like it's just that way because it's been that way. But as long as you get the durations and the time, you can come up with a new way to visualize that information. It doesn't need to be shown just because we're used to seeing something done, right? So that's a great example of like, listen to the problem, what people want to understand, but like, don't listen to the solution from the customer. You need to make the solution. You need to invent the future. But you have to make sure that that's definitely solving a problem for your customer.
I think I'll definitely watch those videos.
Yeah, please do.
And last question is, like, what excites you the most to go to office the next day?
Oh, Mostly the people I get a chance to work with. We just have like really nice, smart, amazing, inspiring people that are doing awesome stuff. Um, but I gotta say, like outside of the people, like every time we're doing kind of like continuous deployment, it's called. So like think of your Tesla car if you have it like, over there are updates. It's kind of crazy, I understand why, but like with web-based development, like you just constantly, you go to bed one night, you wake up the next day, it's better, right? The product's better. You don't have to locally install anything. You don't have to upgrade any plug in. It just gets better and better and better. And I always get super inspired when I see the team making progress on the product. For example, it wasn't that long ago, we just launched and we have customers now, but like we were struggling with certain items, like things not working, or like the IFC import would fail for different reasons, and it's huge technical problems to solve. And now you wake up and like 99.7% of every file uploaded works perfectly, right? And you take it for granted now, but like there was a time there when like 40% were, or 30%. It's failing constantly. And and that's product development. Like things are hard, there's hard technical problems to solve. And now they just work and you take it for granted. But like, it's actually an amazing accomplishment by the team that made it so that it just works every time.
So are you guys more now transitioning towards product compared to service?
Well, the way I like to describe it is that we are a service first business that's in transformation to product first business. So it's not, service is never going away. We're going to have a service component to our business forever. And actually, we built a bit of a service component on top of our products as well. But it's more around like it's a transformation happening, which is, we were only product service focused, FIFA project. We had some innovation there. It was recurring-ish, and we're moving to more recurring and product first with services. So instead of services that's doing some products, it's going to become in the next few years a product business that's doing services.
All right. So my last question of the day is like I didn't get a chance fully to ask like about any books you find very insightful or game changing.
Well, there's lots of them, but I also go on like the ones I've read recently. I'm reading Amazon Unbound right now, Amazon Unbound. So it's just basically talking the most recent book about kind of the story at Amazon and the highs, the lows, the ups and downs. But just Jeff Bezos and their team there. It just in terms of like the amount of bets they're making, the amount of invention and innovation they're doing is pretty incredible. So that's fascinating. I really like the no rules about Netflix culture. This idea of kind of just like being honest with people and giving people honest feedback and being direct with people. And then, yeah, I'm trying to think. There's that's another good one I could think of. The Elon Musk kind of like documentary was awesome. It's called Elon Musk. It's fantastic. And my favorite book in the last 10 years is a book called Thank You Coach. No, it's called Coach Trillion Dollar Coach. Trillion Dollar Coach. It's about Bill Campbell. So Trillion Dollar Coach is a guy, Bill Campbell, football coach actually, that ends up going to Silicon Valley and helping coach like Steve Jobs and all these people. And some amazing lessons learned. They're just amazing stuff. So Trillion Dollar Coach, I highly recommend as well.
I see. All right. I think like I interviewed another architect, architect entrepreneur, and he also recommended $1 Trillion Coach. So
Really? Oh, wow. It's an awesome book. It's so inspiring. And I love that he just did things for you have a lot of people now that'll say, oh, I'll help you, I'll coach you, I'll advise you, but I want to have 2% of your company, or I want to get paid. There's like a big coaching thing. And I value coaching tremendously. I played sports for a long time. Coaches are huge. But I think what's really amazing about what Bill Campbell did is he coached people because he had the resources to do it, which is nice. But he did it for the right reasons, in my opinion. He wanted to make a lasting impact of a legacy, and he did it for others. And he wasn't doing it because he was trying to profit from it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But for me personally, I would hope to do this one day. I hope that I can be running businesses for a long time And if I'm lucky enough to have success to the point where I could coach other people at no cost, just because I care about their well-being and their success, yeah, I'd love to do that. And he's like inspiring that way.
Yeah, and I also feel it comes from sports. Like football is a team spirit, so it's like
Mhm.
well-being of the whole company, and rather than like a person-centric.
Totally. Yeah. Actually, American football is one of the like. There's lots of other sports, but American football is one of the unique things. We have so many different positions, and so many of the positions don't ever touch the ball. Like their job is not. So there's really tactical positions that have roles to play. So it's like a company, right? Like there's a lot of people that are writing code at our company right now that are not doing this interview, right? And they're making a huge impact, right? And their role is extremely important, and they own security or they own feedback or they own whatever. And without them, it would be completely different, right? And that's how football is too. Like you can't, if you don't have a good offensive line, you don't have a good quarterback. That's how it works. So, if I was playing linebacker, if I didn't have a good defensive line in front of me, I would just get blasted all the time. But the whole line, I wouldn't make any plays. I needed good people in front of me to do their job so I could do mine. And that's how companies are as well.
I see. All right, we almost reached to our mark,
Oh,
and
whoa.
I really appreciate Javier for the amazing talk, insightful demo. I would definitely like to test the product soon.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I mean, you definitely, you definitely can try it out. You just get, I'm not, Perkins Oil is probably not going to do much construction simulation, but it's worth trying. And you can show it to your GCs as well. We'd love that. Okay. Awesome. Really nice to meet you. And great job. Keep going. Okay. That's my
Th-
best advice for you. Keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a nice rest of your day. Have fun.